part of the Press Play Podcast Network.
The 1-1 pitch. A swing and a drive to deep right. Away back. Goal!
Hi, everybody, and welcome to the Guardians of the Land MLB Podcast on the Press Play Podcast Network. This is John Telich. I'm with Jensen Lewis this week, the TV analyst on the broadcasts for your Cleveland Guardians. He, of course, had a major league career as a Cleveland Indians relief pitcher. We unpack all of that and then some, including his analysis of the three young pitchers that are on the team right now in the starting rotation in Gavin Williams, Tanner Bybee, and also Logan Allen. Here's Jensen Lewis as we sat down at the studios of Bally Sports. Very pleased to bring on board here on the Guardians of the Land MLB Podcast, Mr. Jensen Lewis. Jensen, you have been connected with this organization in so many different ways. Now the fine analyst on the Bally Sports broadcasts. Can I take you back, before we really get into detail about this year's team, take you back to the pre-Vanderbilt days, growing up, and then just getting your love of baseball connected into the pipeline?
Yeah, Cleveland's been intertwined in my life really a long time, and it goes back to my parents being high school sweethearts from Medina High School, and going to my first game when I was 2 years old and at Old Municipal, and in the top of the first inning, after the three outs were made, the guys were running off the field, and as my parents tell me, I started crying because I thought the game was over. They had to teach me that, hey, this is going to happen a little bit more, and I guess I was hooked from there. So yeah, it's been just kind of a love affair, not only for our family, but for me, I was one of those kids that grew up knowing what I wanted to do at a really early age. The game was always mesmerizing to me, and the passion and the love and just, I think, the competition and knowing what it involved, not only from an athletic standpoint, but from a mental standpoint, having to really adjust pitch to pitch and having to read swings. And I was the kid that, when the Indians run Sunday Night Baseball on ESPN, if I got invited in high school to go to the movies or something, I'd turn it down because we didn't get a lot of opportunities in Cincinnati.
True.
To watch the Indians, let alone, hear the great John Miller and Joe Morgan call it. So I can remember those days like they were yesterday. But yeah, I never lost any love or connection. I mean, there were times where I could pick up Hammy on the radio at night coming home from my games in high school and back in interleague when it was old Riverfront Stadium, seeing it basically transform into an Indians home game with all the Tribe fans driving. I mean, I think we had 70% Indians fans at one point. It really did feel like a home away from home. And then I think just knowing that if I ever had the opportunity to play for my childhood dream team, what an incredible feat that would be, a dream come true. And who would have thought that, my senior year of high school down at Cincinnati Anderson, that I would eventually get drafted. But the story goes that, I got my official visits in order for college, and I only took two. I took one to North Carolina and I took one to Vanderbilt, and took a couple unofficial visits to Tennessee, to Stanford, to Georgia Tech. Had some interest from Notre Dame. I mean, I had a great list of schools, and kind of kept an Excel sheet of categories and things and ranked them. And these are back in the days where you really had to scour the internet for what was life like, for things, what were majors, things that I wanted to do. But my heart was always set on, like, I just want to play. And, my parents were really good at grounding me about, you may not be ready right out of high school. You may need some more developmental things, and those things just may be being on your own day to day and understanding time management and discipline. And I had a great foundation from them, period, to know how to take care of myself and to really be on task and priority oriented. But I think it was just understanding that I could get to where I wanted to go if, I didn't take this leap. And I got drafted by the Indians even after I'd sent a letter to all 30 major league clubs, and I said, hey, I'm obviously honored to be considered, to be drafted, but I had a full ride from Vanderbilt. It would take $1 million at least from a signing bonus standpoint for me to forego that commitment. And to this day, John, even coming out my junior year and ironically being drafted by the Indians again 30 rounds earlier in the third round, it was still the best decision I made because it set me up for the rest of my life.
Gotcha.
And I could not have envisioned what that college experience, both on the field and in the classroom and just doing the things that a normal college kid would do, would set me up in my professional career, not only in the minor leagues, but moving into the big leagues as well.
What was the atmosphere like at Vanderbilt? We know, it plays high caliber college baseball. It's had great teams, atmospheres. So what was that like for you? And then, of course, being a college student, being close to all these bars that everybody's singing Tennessee whiskey left and right. I mean, it had to be tempting for a young guy.
It is remarkable that at the time I was being recruited, actually it was Roy Mewburn who was the head coach there. He was a legend in his own right, but Vanderbilt was in the basement as far as SEC baseball goes. I mean, they hadn't won anything in decades. And the transition happened where Roy, I had committed. I had been offered a full ride. Derek Johnson, who is now the pitching coach for the Cincinnati Reds, was our pitching coach there at Vandy. And that was the first big connection. That was, we clicked right away. He was very smart, very intelligent, had an edge to him, was not afraid to push the envelope, but really, really stressed the recovery aspect of pitching and the mechanics and all that. And that got my mom's attention right away. She's a critical care nurse for over 30 years. And she's like, well, first and foremost, you're going to protect my kid. So that's a huge win. Okay. You win, Mom. You pretty much are going to win the rest of the day. And knowing that Vandy was the academic institution that it is, knock on wood, if anything were to have happened to me while I played, I basically had an Ivy League education to be able to fall back on. So we were set in a couple of ways. Number one, the education was going to take care of me as far as life after baseball. Whether that was happening immediately or it was not, I felt that was as good a foundation as I could have, and then go play baseball really worry-free at that point. Gotcha. Because I had that in my back pocket. But knowing that through high school, I knew I was an advanced player. I knew I could play with the best. And my opportunity at Vanderbilt that really sealed it was they were going to have me play my freshman year. And in SEC Division I mean, it's the best conference in baseball for a reason. You may not see a lot of freshmen have the opportunity to play, let alone, be used in a manner that is productive for your long-term development. So that year we had a real change, and now you see where it is because Tim Corbin was eventually hired. And it freaked me out at first because usually coaches coming in want to bring their own staffs. And I remember calling Derek Johnson saying, dude, if you go, I go. Like, you're as big a reason for me coming here as anything. And he said, let's just pump the brakes. We're going to have meetings coming up. And I think to this day, Tim says it's the best hire he never had to make. Okay. And DJ was so incredibly important to not only from the ground level there in Tim's first year, building it into what it is today. We kind of adopted the Junction Boys moniker. We were a ragtag group. No one thought a lot of us, and all we did was take on Tim's personality and his mentality of come hell or high water, am I going to tolerate losing or last place? It was not in his vocabulary. And after that I'd never forget that first team meeting. This is back when you could take a battery out of your cell phone. And we came in, we were in one of the football meeting rooms, and that already pissed him off big time because there was no real place to meet baseball wise.
So you guys are shuttled into the corner, nobody cared about you.
Yeah, we were not to prominence at that point. And he came in the first day, and the first words he told us were, take the batteries out of your cell phones. And we were like, whoa, what did we say? There was a clear mandate in his mind about why he was hired, what he had visions of doing. And I don't know if we touched the baseball field for the first 48 hours. We were running stadiums in the football stadium. And he told us, and we didn't know he was joking at the time. Of course, no one knew him. So we were like, we knew of him because of his prowess at Clemson and what he was as a recruiting coordinator, one of the best, if not the best in the country.
You didn't want to test him.
We didn't. And he wanted to test every one of us, which ended up being, okay, for every guy I pass, you're cut or you're losing your scholarship. And of course, the fear of God is in us at that point. We're like, who the hell is this guy? But it was from day one, he wanted to institute that win at all costs mentality and that work ethic. And he told us, he said, practice is going to be the hardest thing you do here. The games will be easy. He goes, you will be so relieved when it's game day because number one, you'll have done the work. Number two, you'll have outworked every one of the teams that we've played. And he was right. And so our freshman year, my freshman year, we ended up walking off Tennessee and sweeping them to get into the SEC tournament, which I don't know, I can't remember off the top of my head how long of a drought it had been since Vanderbilt had been there. The next year we go to super regionals. We come within 2 wins of getting to the College World Series, our best year to that point. The next year is my junior year. It ends up being where I ascend to be the Friday night starter and following footsteps of Jeremy Sowers, who was just drafted by the Indians the year prior. We were great friends, and it was so cool to see that. I'm like, God, that would be so great if I could follow and we'd both be in the same organization. And I had a great junior season, and knowing and talking with, those cross checkers and some of the front office people that Cleveland was definitely going to be a player. Now, ironically, that year, the Red Sox, I think, had 6 first-round picks between the first round and then some competitive balance picks. And I remember in high school, I did basically an under-the-lights private workout at Fenway. It was then a younger Terry Francona. It was a young Theo Epstein. And I remember them standing behind the batting cage, and I'm all of 17, 18 years old. I'm like, holy crap, take a look around. The world has gotten pretty big here. So to see the Red Sox as a possibility just 3 short years later, and I'd played in the Cape the last couple of seasons in the summer, I'm like, I'm going to be a Red Sox. There's no way. They pass it up. And those were the days too where the draft was calling into the big conference call. There wasn't anything on MLB Network. There was no MLB Network at that point. And I can remember that second round passing, my name not being called, or at least me not getting a phone call and thinking, oh my God, this is surreal. This is not supposed to happen. And then I think a handful of picks before the Indians selection, I had gotten a call and talked with Mark Shapiro and he's like, hey, get ready to come home. You're going to be an Indian. And putting the phone down and talking with my parents were there, my grandparents, my brother. And I think they all kind of were, it's right out of a movie. Yeah. Hung up the phone. I said, it's Cleveland. And I don't know, there was a dry eye in the room. And it was just the consummation of where it all started from Municipal Stadium as a 2-year-old to now I'm going to be a member of the organization I grew up wanting to just be a part of. So it was a pretty surreal feeling at that point. And then to put the cherry on top, they invited me up to sign my contract when it was interleague against the Reds. Of course. And, they knew what they were doing. It was pretty easy at that point, but just to think and can go back and know exactly how I felt looking down, at everything and being in the dugout and seeing, CC Sabathia go by and guys that I just remember watching in high school, like, God, these guys they're just larger than life. And here I am now a member of the organization. So just a moment you never forget.
It's amazing to hear you recount that because I can just see it on your face. You're that 2-year-old in the stadium as a tiny little toddler. And then you're a young grown man, but you are part of the organization. There's not enough spots on the body to pinch as far as that's concerned. Pinch me moment, July 16, 2007. And the reason I want to get your thoughts on that, because we'll also expand as we continue the interview. A lot of those types of moments are happening recently for this team. Mm-hmm. Guys that was the date that you broke into the big leagues. How fast was your heart beating? What was it like?
Yeah, actually the lead up to that date is pretty incredible. Just getting the call the day after the All-Star break, we were in Durham, North Carolina, and I'll never forget
it. You set up like you didn't. The story is that you didn't really suspect the news.
Yeah.
How did that come down for you?
Yeah. So the big league team had a 4-day All-Star break. We had a 3-day down there, and that was when it was AAA. Our organization was in Buffalo, and early flight to Durham. we were playing that night, and I was the setup guy at that point and throwing the 8th inning. And so I get into the game, and Wyatt Torregas was our catcher at that point, and we got 2 quick outs. And all of a sudden I see him come to the mound, and Scott Radinsky, our pitching coach, is coming to the mound, and Eddie Mujica, who's our closer, is starting to rapid fire down in the bullpen. And I'm thinking, we've had 3 days off. Like, this is the first day back. Like, what's going on? And so Rad comes out. He goes, hey, this next guy's going to be your last hitter. And I said, why? He goes, don't worry about it. Just get him out. I'll tell you later. Okay. So end up getting him out. We win the game. And right across from the stadium, there are a couple of restaurants. So guy in our bullpen, Bubby Buzzicaro, and I, we'd always find a spot within walking distance just to kind of explore the town and each stop we were at. And so I don't think we were over there for more than 5-10 minutes, and my phone rings, and it's Torey Lovello, is our manager. He goes, hey, I need you to come back. Trainer needs to see you. And I'm thinking, okay, like, I didn't do anything. Like, we just got here. We just played one game. What's going on? And so Bubby's like, oh, dude, you're getting the call. You're going. And I'm like, don't mess around. Like, that's not even funny. Yeah. In my mind, I'm like, okay, I'm getting traded. Something is like the call to the big leagues was the last thing that was on my mind. And so I get back, and it's like a firing squad in Torey's office. We got our coaches. I think Jeff Desjardins was our trainer at that point. So Torey closed the door, locks it. I'm sitting in front of everybody, and he goes, you're too smart for your own good sometimes. And I didn't know any other way to try and get you back here without you suspecting anything, but try and get some sleep tonight. You're going to show tomorrow. And I just lost it right there. I'm like, I can't believe it. It did not process that would be the possibility that ultimately would come true. So I go out, I shake everyone's hand, give them hugs, go to the dugout. I'm calling my parents. I'm like, hey, it's happening. They're living in Cincinnati and still are. And so I'm like, get packed, come on up. Like, it's happening tomorrow. Here's my itinerary. Here's what's going down. And so now I got to pack up, and, I text Bubby. I'm like, I can't believe it, dude. You were right. And he goes, dude, we're waiting for you. Come on back over. So I got my bat. I literally got my bat bag over my shoulder. I'm walking into this packed restaurant, and people are looking, who the hell is this guy? And so we had a round of celebratory drinks, and then I'm calling, college buddies and teammates and, guys that,
it's a huge rush, man.
It was unbelievable. I think I was up till about 2 a.m. My flight was around 8. And I'm rooming with Aaron Laffey, a guy that I basically lived with, and we were roommates all the way up to the big leagues. And so he's starting the next day, and he's already asleep. So I'm not waking him up, but I got to try and pack, and not wake him up. So I think my cab was at like 6:30 in the morning or something. And so I like kind of tapped him, and I was like, hey, Laff, I'm leaving. I'm going to Cleveland. And he's like, okay. Did not dawn on him. So I get off the plane. I get a voicemail, and he's, are you kidding me? Why don't you wake me up? Oh my God. I was like, sorry, dude. I know you had to start today, but I figured I'd talk to you when you woke up. But that was surreal. And then, getting into I didn't know what time to get to the field. I'm getting there at like noon, 12:30, just trying to get my bearings. And now all the emotions are coming in of, this is where you always wanted to play, and now you're wearing the jersey and seeing your number for the first time and your name on it. My locker was right next to Rafi Betancourt, who was right next to Grady Sizemore, and I'm like, dear God, this is just, I can't believe it's happening. Couldn't have been nicer, guys. Casey Blake, Jake Westbrook come over, hey, shake your hand, congratulations, welcome to the show. Anything we can do, just let us know. And Carl Willis, so crazy, the 6 degrees of separation. He was pitching coach then. He is now again after a couple of stops and, meeting Wedgie, because I wasn't in big league camp that year. I was in minor league camp and was in AA to start the year. So fast forward to July 16th, which is also my dad's birthday. Awesome. We're getting blown out by the White Sox, and I think we were getting ready to leave for Texas for the road trip. And I got my parents buying flight tickets or getting hotel reserved. Like, they're not missing the debut come hell or high water. And so we're getting blown out, and phone rings, and Louis Isaacs, our bullpen coach, he goes, Jensen, it's you. Go warm up. I'm like, all right. So I'm firing, and it's not like any other experience, because it's your first time, and you're kind of caught in between, okay, I got a job to do, and then you're trying to like soak it all in, and it's so hard in the moment.
Yeah, you can't do two things at once.
I can remember just running in, or I thought I jogged in, and I was told, no, you ran in, and getting out there and just the third deck effect, seeing around, like it didn't register that I was in the big league game, or I was finally achieving the childhood dream until I got my first out. So I think Josh Fields was the first guy I faced. I ended up walking him, and then Juan Uribe was the next guy, and I struck him out. So my first big league out's a strikeout. And Victor Martinez is our catcher, and I walk in and go sit at the end of the dugout. He comes, sits next to me, take his mask off, puts his hand on my leg. He goes, "Welcome to the show, Papi." And he gives me the ball, and I'm like, all right, I've arrived. I'm here. And when I think I threw another inning, because when I went back out, my two childhood idols were Omar Vizquel and Jim Thome.
Wow.
I was the compensatory pick in 2005 because of Omar Vizquel leaving via free agency. So, I mean, that intertwining is, you can't make it up. So Thome, I think, was the second guy. I think I faced Canerco first, or it was Thome. I can't remember which, but I remember him being announced and turning around, and I'm like, oh my God, he's so much bigger in person. And now I got to try and get him out. And I feel like it was my lone intentional walk of my career. I was like, there's no way I can like give up a hit to this guy. And so I met him the next day, just, as we all know, just an incredibly kind person, congratulated me on making it up. Hey, stay healthy, man, and have a great career. And so I was so thankful that I could do it at home, but to do it on my dad's birthday with all my friends and family there, or as many as that could make it. Again, another moment you just don't forget.
That is a fantastic way to recap such an amazing point in your career, and your career is still ascending on the TV side now. And I think we're at that point too, where we got you to the big leagues. I want to take you a little bit further into the big leagues, and then get the correlation or the connection between you doing your TV job and some of these kids getting their major league debuts, their moments, the Gavin Williamses, the Logan Allens, Bybee, and et cetera. So we're going to take a quick break here. We're with Jensen Lewis, and we'll be right back with more of Jensen Lewis.
What's up, everyone? I'm Holly Wetzel.
And I'm Tybus Powell.
And we are your hosts of The Orange is Oranger, a Cleveland Browns podcast on the Press Play Podcast Network. We give you all the dog pound coverage that you'll need to get you through the regular season, hopeful postseason, and I'd say off-season, Tybus, but is there really ever an off-season for this team?
Thankfully for our podcast, Holly, there really never is when it comes to the Cleveland Browns. Don't miss our breakdown of each week's matchup, game recaps, and any and all news out of Berea to feed your Browns appetite. As we know, Holly, dogs gotta eat.
Yes, they do. So hit that subscribe button and never miss an episode of the Orange is Oranger, Cleveland Browns podcast on the Press Play Podcast Network.
Hey everybody, it's Sam Amico from Cavs on the Break NBA podcast. Be sure to give us a listen for all your Cleveland Cavaliers recaps, analysis, breakdowns, draft talk, free agency. The list goes on and on. Give us a listen, Cavs on the Break NBA podcast.
So your rookie year, oh my gosh, you guys are in the ALCS. You're pitching in Game 4. You guys go up 3-1. How'd that year? I shouldn't be mean. That was really a bitter pill to swallow, wasn't it?
It was.
To be up 3-1 and not get to the World Series.
Yeah, and I think that first series against the Yankees was just an incredible life experience in and of itself. And knowing that we were even the underdog as division winners, it was widely expected for the Yankees to win and move on and play the Red Sox. And I believe that regular season came down to the final day. We were in line for the best record with Boston. And I believe that year is where you could choose. I think it was an hour after completion of the games where the team that ended up being first got to choose whether they wanted an extra off day or not, or something around that. Because eventually when we ironically play Boston, that off day ends up coming in as a massive, massive help for them to get a day off. But at any rate, that Yankee series, just knowing how we just beat the brakes off them in that first game. And of course, as many people know, you win game one, it's really great percentage wise to move on. But the second game in the midges, and For people, and we've talked about it every year, but where we were in the pen, and if people remember where that old home bullpen is, it's kind of that straight out in center field. The visitors were down the right field line. We didn't have a real sense of what was going on until we could see down by the elephant doors where the paramedics usually sit, and they've got the monitor in there. That's our first realization of, whoa, like what's going on. We saw guys come out with the bug spray and stuff, but it was really isolated to just that part of the stadium. We didn't really have anything out by us. So we were getting it secondhand and seeing, again, they were our most valuable player. If the way that Jabba Chamberlain and Mariano Rivera were pitching, you give them a lead, it was over. And so to get Jabba off his game just a little bit and you get Grady in on the wild pitch, we really started to believe at that point, okay, maybe the luck is with us now.
Sure.
Because those things just don't happen. So my seeing Hafner walk it off, I was warming up, getting ready. He hits the laser beam, and it's just euphoria. We get in the clubhouse. We're all trying to process what just happened. Like, we're a win away from going to the ALCS. And then we all are in the buses underneath, the arena, and they're, taking us through the pre-TSA and winding us down so we don't have to do it when we get to the bird. Coming out of the tunnel and seeing 15,000 people around, because they had the streets blocked off. They had the big projection, I think, over at Thirsty Parrot, and to see the city just so alive and just in a frenzy, it really gave us a huge boost. It was an unbelievable home field advantage. Never forget Trot Nixon, who was just our heart and soul at that point. I remember him saying that years past, when Boston would come in, teams he was part of, they hated playing in Cleveland because it was so loud. It was such a distinct home field advantage, and it was a really tough place to win. And he was saying, I've just got that vibe all over again, and it was great to see. So we play game 3 in Yankee Stadium. We're down, and I'm coming in the 8th inning. And usually I would ask Louis Isaac would tell me the 3 hitters that were coming up, if I was starting an inning or anything to kind of be ready for. And if people remember at old Yankee Stadium, the bleacher bums are kind of right there. They're right on you. They were alive and well, to say the least.
Oh, yeah.
And so it didn't really process for me who I was facing. I was ended up facing Derek Jeter, Bobby Abreu, and Alex Rodriguez. And so it was an unusually warm night. I knew warming up that I had really good stuff. My fastball was popping. I felt really good, really strong. So came in, did my warm-ups, and Victor's catching. I can see the whites of his teeth because I'm peppering it pretty good. And I think he's feeling it. And he's telling me, he's like, let's go. Let's go. And so turn around, get the ball from Casey at third. And all of a sudden you just hear I Run New York by Jay-Z. And I turn around, I'm like, oh my God, it's Jeter. And at that time, one of the more prolific guys, as we know, at the top of the lineup. So I'm like, all right, here we go. And it starts the best inning, in my opinion, that I ever threw. So I punch out Jeter, I punch out Abreu, and I punch out A-Rod. So I strike out the side in the 8th inning. And I'm walking off, and I don't notice that Paul Bird and Jason Michaels are kind of top stepping it, and they're watching me every step of the way. And I go sit down in the dugout, and Birdie comes over and he goes, do you realize what you just did? I'm like, yeah, you got 3 outs. He goes, no, he goes, you punched out 2 future Hall of Famers and a guy who might be the best left-handed hitter we've had in the last 5 to 10 years. Just so you know,
keep that, man.
It was pretty good. And then I knew, checking my phone after the game, of all the text messages and the voicemails and things, and people. Again, it's that come out of the woodwork scenario where people you've never heard from or you haven't heard from in forever. But to win Game 4 the way we did, and to have Jobo close it out for us, and to see all of our fans that made the trip and our family there, and we're the last team ever in old Yankee Stadium history to win a playoff series, because if people remember, in 2008 they failed to make the playoffs in the last year of the stadium. So we'll always have that whether that's a beer money question or not for later on, that will always be a badge of honor. But yeah, going to that Boston series and knowing that it was going to be a pretty hostile environment going to Fenway. We don't play well in Game 1. Game 2 is just the epic extra inning affair. And I can remember, my role in that game, and coming in and throwing multiple innings. And I was getting ready to face Manny Ramirez, and I can see Wedge coming out, and I'll never forget it because I was like, oh my God, this is the guy I want to face. This is the guy I want to face. So I put my glove over my mouth.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm like, there's no way in hell you're taking me out right now. He starts laughing. He goes, get the hell out of here. It was in a cordial yet firm, like, hey, I want to be here. This is an out I wanted. And I think he appreciated that coming from a rookie guy. And it was just, it felt like you were in a docu-series at that point. It just, the game kept going and back and forth and the ebb and flow. And then, Goody hits a grand slam off John Lester, and we're like, oh my God, this is unbelievable. And so we got our split. Okay, now we can come home. Jake throws game 3, is just phenomenal. Johnny Peralta was amazing for us in game 4. Birdie, pitched his heart out. And then there's that off day in between. And I can remember coming to the yard, playing catch with Jake, because he was going to be our game 7 starter if we got there. And I can remember literally Jacoby Ellsbury, who I played with. He was a teammate of mine in Cape Cod the previous year, and he was in left field. And I remember talking to him. He's like, dude, we're done. I'm like, we're going to the World Series tomorrow. Like, if this is how they are, then that's all we need. And who would have thought that off day just kind of got them enough time to catch their breath? Unfortunately, CC has a tough start to the game in game 5. And we end up losing big time because Beckett was unbelievable. It was the quietest flight I think I had been on. And it was just very ominous knowing that we were going back. And again, we would have 2 chances to win. But as everyone knows, game 7, anything can happen. So it was a tough way for the year to end. And to see guys that, it was my first year in the big leagues. And, we had about 5-10 minutes in the clubhouse afterwards. And guys were crying. And I can remember, hugging Paul Bird. We didn't know if he would be done, retired after that. Guys that had played 10, 15 years who had never gotten to the playoffs. Yeah. This was going to be their only shot maybe to get there. And here I am thinking, oh, don't worry about it. We'll be back next year. And no, I mean, we were awful the next year. But yeah, it was a surreal season. Just, the things that you experience in just a calendar year, let alone just half a season, at the big league level, was something I'll never forget.
Let's jump forward, Jensen, if we can. You come to the point where you're going to transition into something beyond baseball, and it turned out to be what we're doing now, media stuff. And you're very natural at it. You do a great job at it. But was that the first thing that you thought of as you were in the last couple of years, or how did that transition go? And then we have to jump forward to and get your thoughts on Gavin, Bybee, and also Logan Allen.
Yeah, so I was in my final year of pro ball, little did I know, with the Cubs in 2013, and had gotten released at the end of April. And at that time, I was still living in Scottsdale and was training in Tempe just to stay ready. And the worst time to get released is right at the end of April, early May, because clubs want to give the guys that they've chosen out of camp some time to prove themselves. So barring some catastrophic injury somewhere, I was kind of in no man's land at that point. Ironically, Matt Underwood gave me a call and said, hey, no, you're still working, looking for a team, a landing spot, but I know broadcast is something you've always kind of had an interest in, and we actually have a need here at the network for about 7 to 10 games maybe, and is it something you're interested in? I said, absolutely. I can play catch at the stadium, stay working and all that. So I literally packed up my life into my car, and I think I drove about 15 hours the first day, and I'm passing through St. Louis. Cardinals were home that night, and it really felt like a movie. The lights were on, the stadium was in my rearview mirror, and it was just a completely overwhelming feeling. I know exactly how it felt still to this day, that this is it, I'm done.
Did you have to pull over?
I stayed the night, and I knew that I didn't want to fully embrace it yet. It's still that first time of, I've been a ball player, and that's what I know. And it didn't even start to enter my mind that in the next couple of weeks, I was going to eventually have my start at something that I'm currently doing. And I'd never had a minute of on-air training. Vanderbilt did not offer a broadcast journalism major or anything like that. I had my communications degree, And I felt that I could, through public speaking and those sorts of things, I felt I could communicate. Now it's different though, because this is live TV. There is no pause button. Like, you got to go. And so thank goodness, Al Pulowski, who I obviously work with now, had done interviews with him when I was a player. So there was a natural chemistry already. I knew him. There was some familiarity there. It was just different of, okay, we're doing a show now. There's a rundown. There's things we're trying to accomplish, all those sorts of things. And we were in the old Channel 3 space there, sharing it with 3 News. And so we're 30 seconds to air for my first pregame, and there's this bug. I'm not kidding you, John. It looked like a bumblebee just flying around. And we come right to my first ever one shot, and that sucker sure as hell lands right on my nose. And the only thing that occurred to me was it's bullpen mentality. Like, I can only fall back on what I know is you just got to go. Like, you got to keep going. They can't stop. And
what bug?
And the only thing I did wrong was I forgot to, take my phone out of my pocket. I had it on vibrate, thank goodness. And it's just burr, 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 like this. People are like texting me, "Oh my God, dude, there's a bug on your nose." So that was a baptism by fire. I think the next day the network crashed, so we couldn't go to commercial for about 7 or 8 minutes.
This is awesome.
And that was my first baptism also into, your producer, director talking to you and
maybe talk back in your
ear. And I was having to talk while they were talking to me. So
it's unnerving.
You just, the things that you're not ready for, and you just have to go.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm thrilled that in a way I was thrown right into the fire and had to react immediately. It helped kind of set the stage for, I'm like, if I can get through this, then I can get through anything they can throw at me. So that was back in 2013. Did about 60 shows or 60 games in 2014, and then got the call from then Sports Time Ohio that they would offer me the full position or the full-time position starting in 2015. And to think that this is my 11th year,
that's crazy.
It's amazing that I've already basically had tenure in one profession, and now we'll have it in the second one, and I'm not even 40 yet. So some people have said maybe you should have done broadcast much earlier, but
it worked out how it worked out. That's
exactly.
It really did. Well, it's been great hearing you talk about your trials and tribulations as a ball player, as a broadcaster, bugs on noses. Believe me, we've had plenty of those types of situations over the years. I can give you that. What do you say we talk just a little bit now here for our fans that are really curious about the 3 young pitchers? Let's cap things off with, you spoke with Gavin Williams.
Mm-hmm.
We're by the way in a conference room. You're about to go on the air tonight. This is Tuesday, so Gavin is pitching his second major league start. What are the pros and cons of this young man? What do you think of him? And then I want to ask you about the other 2 starters.
Yeah, of course, the talent is just off the charts. And as a first round pick, having the expectations of where you're drafted are certainly, something he's lived up to already in his minor league career. The comparisons to Garrett Cole, just with the stature, with the mechanics, and especially, with the velocity and the power breaking balls, there's no question he can compete at this level just on raw ability. What I think is intriguing with him is, in talking to him directly and then his coaches, the maturity that he's developed in just a year's time is remarkable for a guy that is going to have the pressure of, he could be the heir apparent as the ace of this staff, depending on what the future holds for Shane Bieber.
Sure.
When you've got that kind of physical ability with the mental makeup, and I think pitching at East Carolina and having to pitch at big time Division I baseball has helped get him set for what eventually he's going to face at this level. And I think also the organization did a great job. In his first start, he gets to do it at home against Oakland, of course, an offense that has struggled a little bit, kind of that onboarding process, if you will.
Yeah.
He'll get another opportunity against the Royals, and then you kind of take the reins off and set him free. So the sky is the limit potential-wise. How far he goes will be on his ability to adjust and to deal with the adversity that every major league pitcher faces, especially a young one. But the added pressure, too, of everyone's gunning for you. Like, he's not sneaking up on anybody.
Yeah.
He's going to get everyone's best shot. And in a way, that's great to learn quickly and know that your stuff it far outweighs a lot of the hitters that he's going to face.
You've gone down to when he was in the minors and you sat down with him, so it wasn't a scrum with a bunch of other reporters. What did you glean from that?
Yeah, he's just an honest and straightforward guy, a man of few words, but I think his personality, there's some calm, there's some poise there. I don't think he overthinks, which is great. Sometimes it's better just grab it and throw it and not worry about any of the other analysis. I think also too, he understands how to read swings. I think he understands how to game plan, and then the rest is just learning up here. There's no way to learn how to get big league hitters out unless you're in the big leagues. And for him, I think he'll be able to overcompensate, perhaps if there are shortcomings results wise, because he has that ability to put 5, 6, 7 starts together of just utterly dominant stuff. That's how good I think he can be.
Wow, it's really going to be fun to see as he progresses. And again, we are taping this before his second major league start. So we saw the 6 innings, I think, that he had. Was it 6? In his 5 2/3 in his major league debut. I'm sure he'll pitch better in game 2. All right, the two kids came up together, and I don't know if they're going back, but they've had a few bumps and bruises. But they've really shown a lot in different ways, haven't they?
Yeah, they have. And I'll start with Logan. Logan Allen, had a chance to visit with him at a kids clinic in Lake County. And boy, what a young man. What an intellectual individual, a guy that you can see the wheels turning. You can see him process the information real time. A great listener, a guy that really is a sponge, soaks a lot of things up around him. And has really a bulldog mentality. He's kind of a silent assassin, if you will. Like he, velocity wise probably won't blow you away, but pitchability, poise, the ability to adjust pitch to pitch, you can see that happen. And for a kid at his age and just I think maybe even 200 innings or less at the minor league level, to see those adjustments in real time is a real credit to the player and also our minor league staff for helping equip these guys with those tools to be able to hit the ground running. So extremely excited for him. And we haven't had a dominant left-handed starting pitcher in the rotation probably since Cliff Lee, and don't want to put any extra pressure on Logan, but if he gets anywhere near what Cliff did, we're lucky to have him. And I just think there's such a good head on his shoulders, a guy that makes everyone around him better, and I think is really motivated to continue to refine his craft.
How about Mr. Bybee?
Bybee is one of those just meteoric rise guys, and even just talking with some of the Akron folks too about the end of his season and where the fastball velocity jumped in a big way to get to the high 90s and now some triple-digit fastballs. I mean, that he's got such a great riding fastball to maintain playing the way that he does, and then to have a really good changeup and a really good breaking ball off that. Stuff-wise, it's rare to have that kind of trio in that body build that he's at. So the potential and I think all three of them bring such an individuality with their attack, with their ability to adjust. And with Tanner on stuff alone, he might be that guy that it may not be there command-wise, but he could probably survive and get by with just the raw ability. And that's a credit to him. Hard to do at the major league level against any offense, but he exhibits that killer instinct too of when he gets to 2 strikes, like I ain't messing around. I'm a freight train. I'm coming right after you. Great attribute to have so young in a career.
Yeah, really fun to watch. You obviously were a pitcher in this organization and had very good success. And you mentioned Carl Willis in the beginning, and now here years later still involved with some moves elsewhere in between. It's not just Carl. What are some of the other things that what goes into the secret sauce that makes this organization do such a great job with young pitchers?
Yeah, I think first of all, is communication and honesty. We're all grown-ups, and sometimes the tough love.
You can handle the truth.
Yeah,
the truth.
And I think that's probably a separator for the organization, especially at the higher levels. There are some tough times where you might be pitching well and there's just not an opportunity, and so it's that delicate nature of, hey, you're doing great, but keep going. And those guys, especially the pitching coaches, and I was so fortunate to have, the likes of Tony Arnold, who's still in the organization, Scott Radinsky was phenomenal for me. Ruben Niebla, who is now, the pitching coach there in San Diego, so important in not only developing, the pitching plan and attack and adjustment, but also learning the person. And I give our organization a lot of credit for those guys just in and of themselves, having, worked with them on a daily basis. They really took it upon themselves to learn the person first. We're all different, and to know how to deal with a personality both in the game and then in between outings. It is like you're a teacher and you've got a classroom full of different kids, and
no cookie cutters.
Yeah, and not everyone learns at the same rate or retains the information or processes it at the same wavelength. And those guys were really unique in their ability to understand, just in my individual sense, that I was a high intelligence guy. I could handle a lot of information at once. I could handle a lot of things that were both positive and constructive in criticism, and not lose my way, not get derailed by maybe some information that wasn't kind, as far as, you're not very good with your slider right now. We've got to find a way to get this better. You want to get to the big leagues, we've got to really finish that pitch off for you. So the balance of being honest, but also being forthright about, here's your path. And I think that's all we'd ever want as players is, give me clarity on what it's going to take. Give me a mission, give me goals, give me checkpoints. If I get through that, my reward at the end, if the timing is right, is my ticket to the show. And I think that's all any ball player would ever ask of their staff and their organization is, just give me the roadmap and let me do the work. And if I need to get back on track or I need to be put on a different path, I can trust that you guys have my best interest at heart.
Wow, this has been great information that you've been giving, both just on your career and then on how these young kids have the opportunity to come up to the big leagues and to be the next in the long line of very outstanding young pitchers. And this year, things can be better. I think they're 11th in ERA in Major League Baseball. Certainly not the stats that you had a year ago, but the people are in place, and the future's bright for some of these young pitchers. So that's going to be fun to watch them. And you're going to enjoy just night after night kind of breaking down what they're doing.
Yeah, and that's the unique part of our game, right? And no game is the same, no day is the same. And those kids learning on the fly. And I know we had the Gardiac kids as far as the collective last year, and it was probably the right mix of guys that just weren't really aware of what they were doing. Mm-hmm. This was just show up to the park, play your game, and the rest will take care of itself. And it's a unique group this year of those young kids that went through it last year that now understand and respect the length of the season. Not that they didn't last year, but right. It's different playing August and September games with a lot on the line, and then playing basically your second season of getting into the postseason, and what the Tampa series, such a grind out, low scoring, every pitch matters. It's exhausting. And then the media mob and all the highlights, or all the big lights of New York, and dealing with playing against a team that, by and large, you took them right to the end and you had an opportunity to move on. That's all you asked for. If you were to say at the beginning of last year, knowing it was going to be the youngest team in baseball, and say you're going to go to Game 5 sure. in Yankee Stadium and have an opportunity to move on, yeah, you'd probably take that any time. So this group, I think, from an experience standpoint, they can fall back a little bit on what they learned last year. It's almost played out similarly, where it was a tough first couple of months from a consistency standpoint, started to catch a little fire offensively. And then Terry's been the best manager in baseball since I think he got here, of second half record. And it shows in the adjustments. And I think it also shows that when you have leaders like Jose and Josh Naylor and Shane and Cal, guys that have been there, have done that, you can buy in as a younger kid or as a new teammate and say, they just showed you last year, this is what it takes. And to have a staff that also has been there in multiple different years in multiple different ways, it's a real good melting pot for guys to lean on each other and be able to use those experiences to their advantage.
Enjoy following you the rest of the way this season, Jensen. Great insights and much appreciation for what you've done so far in your TV career. Really come along very, very nicely. Great insights each and every game. So I wish you nothing but the best, and the Guards as they move forward. So have a good broadcast tonight.
Thanks, John. Appreciate it as always.
Thanks very much to Jensen for the great conversation. I look forward to having him on the podcast later on this year. We can break down some of the other guys on your Cleveland Guardians and not just specifically talk about the young pitchers on the team. Great conversation. Thanks very much. And I implore you to take a look at some of the other podcasts here on the Press Play Podcast Network, whether it's the Sable Brothers or Regai and Rhoda, or of course, the Bull has his show where he talks about things in the media, some of the great TV shows or movies, things of that nature. We have our Browns pod, all kinds of things for you to digest and also to have the chance just to listen to wherever you happen to be headed. And this is John Telich on the Guardians of the Land MLB Podcast here on the Press Play Podcast Network. We look forward to catching up with you the next time around to keep tabs on your Cleveland Guardians. We'll see you the next time.